I can only speak about my own experiences in America. I found that we have to understand America's image abroad is one in which it just bombs countries left, right, center. It launches coups. Even in the Arab Spring, when people wanted freedom, the Obama administration felt that the Arabs had chosen wrongly and therefore decided to support many coups instead in that regard. And that continued later on. And we see now the relationship between the autocratic regimes and even the Trump administration. What I found when I came to America is that a lot of Americans, once they become aware of what's happening, once they become aware of the horrors that are taking place and the atrocities, a lot of them end up moving and they end up mobilizing, which is why we're seeing with this pressure with regards to Hegseth. It's so egregious what took place that it's the public pressure that's being manifest, in which even Donald Trump cannot seem to protect Hegseth, and Hegseth his head might roll as a result of this incident that took place with regards to shooting those two who were hanging onto the boat, and I think it was kill them all. That's what Hegseth said, or something along those lines. I think that if we apply it in my context and even more broadly, I think the war that's taking place in America right now is, how do we keep this stuff away from the American people? How do we divert their attention to something else? How do we spend 50 billion on TikTok to ensure that the Americans don't see what Israel is doing in Palestine? Because when they see it, they turn against the Israelis and sympathize with the Palestinians. How can I buy CBS and put Barry Weiss in charge to control the flow of information to Americans? And this is why I started with, it wasn't an attack on me. It was an attack on the Americans. Americans are waking up. How do we put them back to sleep? How do we make sure that we dehumanize the Venezuelan in front of the Americans so they will allow us to do what we want to do to Maduro? How do we desensitize the American and prevent them from seeing the realities of what's happening in Palestine so that Israel can ensure that Congress funds Israel before it supports the Americans instead? This is why this is a war on America. It's not a war on Venezuela or Palestine. It's a war against the American people, who these enemies of America believe that if the Americans see the truth, they will result in tangible changes in the administration, whether it's Hegseth or whether it's previously with Mamdani winning in New York, or whether it's the Democrats winning in Virginia, doing a resounding no, whether it's the SNAP, 42 million people almost got taken off SNAP, and as a result of public pressure, some of that was reversed. It's about, how do you prevent Americans from receiving that information? And that's why, to bring it back to your point about ICE, what ICE are terrified of, ICE are terrified that Americans will realize what they're doing. ICE are terrified that Americans will find out what they're doing. ICE are terrified that when the Americans find out, it won't be just that ICE will be prevented from detaining these people illegally, but that those who are employed by ICE, those who fulfill those orders, those guards from G4S, which does the transportation in horrible conditions in the way that they left me in cuffs until my legs were blue, and they do the same to other people who are also inmates too. I think that ICE are terrified that if the Americans wake up, no administration can stand in their way. And this is why I want to emphasize this point, given it's the last question, and I want to send this message out more than anything else. This case wasn't about Sami Hamdi. This case wasn't about even the Palestinian cause in and of itself. This was about trying to restrict the freedom of speech and the freedom of information. This was the Israelis saying to the Americans that you can have freedom of speech, but not when it comes to us. Your rights are subject to how we define them. And I was lucky in my case in that Americans came out for me and said, this is outrageous. Ryan, I had even Wolf Blitzer say to me that, Mr. Hamdi, I find what happened to you to be disgusting. And this is somebody who used to be a member of AIPAC. Right. The point that I'm saying is that if Americans wake up, there's no way these atrocities take place. The war that's taking place now is America first versus Israel first. It's about, how can you wake up enough Americans to the tragedies and atrocities that are unfolding, and how do you prevent the Israelis from putting them back to sleep? If you can wake the Americans from their slumber, I truly believe a lot of these atrocities being committed by the administration, I think they will cease, because the Americans, the backlash will be such that I think the administration, when forced to choose between survival and between these egregious policies, I think, especially in Trump's case, he'll look at the polls and he'll adjust accordingly.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, I hope you're right about that. I know that a lot of people have some doubts, but hopefully the American people do learn about it and do put pressure. We're doing as much as we can. You're doing even more. Sami, really appreciate you joining us. Actually, for people who watch Breaking Points, they'll see you again tomorrow morning
Thank you
on that show. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But thanks so much for joining us here. And where
Thank you
can
very
people
much, man.
find you? Because if people don't already follow you.
I think you know. I mean, if you put Ryan Grimm on Google, all the stuff comes up, and I assume if you put Sami Hamdi on Google, all the social
Yeah.
media links and that stuff will come up as well. And it's great to see you, Ryan. And I do want to affirm that, you know, Drop Site News and Breaking Points, you guys have done a lot in terms of waking the American people up to the realities that's unfolding. And I hope you guys continue. And I do believe in the message of hope. I do believe that goodness triumphs over evil. I just think that the road of goodness and the path is a difficult one. You're not fighting against easy. It's good versus evil, and I think it's a noble path. And I actually think you guys are on the front lines of it. So keep doing what you're doing, and we'll follow.
Well, deeply appreciate that, and thank you so much for joining us too.
Thank you, Ryan. Take care.